Of Kittens and Broken Things, Chapter 33. Kara had her head down in a sheltering palm. Thane, this is a very bad idea. It is an excellent idea. Why don't you do it yourself, then? You must gain practice in social settings, in my company. So this is primarily a field trip? Rehearsal? Kasumi requires assistance, Lassam, and if she does not get it, it is possible that she would leave the ship and attempt it on her own, possibly dying in the attempt, possibly tortured before that. That is not acceptable. You require her assistance. She deserves and needs help. If you do not go with me and I accomplish it on my own, then you are not the beneficiary of her loyalty. Maybe I shouldn't be. You'd be doing all the work. You spared Kolyant, and I am the beneficiary of his loyalty. I did not participate. He won some arguments by arguing both sides effectively and leaving her in the frustrated dust. Her head ached and her intellect was in swollen knots that didn't release. What was wrong with Kasumi's plan? It is unlikely that such an obvious, I believe you would call it a Trojan horse, would pass security checks. Your arms and weaponry would more likely be confiscated and both of you detained. She can cloak, yes, but the risks to her are too high. She cannot remain cloaked indefinitely, and there are cameras, biometric sensors, and heat detection that would make her vulnerable. I can take her place. I will be welcomed and sought after by the host. I have attended functions at his residence before. I would be a familiar sight. I have not appeared with another guest before, but that would not arouse suspicion. My invitation from Donovan Hawk is a signal that he wishes to conduct business. He would insist on privacy in his sanctuary. He is a man who enjoys his pageantry. You will not require arms or armor. We will not draw the attention of security forces. You and Kasumi would be at much higher risk had you used her plan. If she is considering this, she is desperate, though I did not tell her so. Which name are you using here? Benis Karat. She did create a cover for you. You are Allison Gunn. I am arm candy? Completely superfluous to the mission? He smiled. Yes, you are arm candy on a field trip, Lassam. You cannot look like yourself. Your height and your coloring would make it impossible to avoid association with Shepard. We will stop at Ilium beforehand, and I will arrange for wardrobe and makeup. You also cannot afford a betraying blush. Your skin will be covered. That's a blessing. With makeup, Lassam. Your made-up skin will be exposed. Oh. I'm wearing the heels, huh? You are indeed wearing heels, and if you cannot walk in them, you will be leaning on my arm for support the entire evening. You're kinda mean, Thane. I am a vicious killer with no morals, Miss Gunn. Oh boy. Do not say that on the grounds. How about I just keep my mouth shut and lean on your arm? We should strive for a better portrayal of a criminal, but if that is all you can manage, I can achieve the demeanor of a man escorting a lovely, yet inarticulate woman for obvious reasons. She blushed, and her head tipped down. You're really mean. It is up to you to give the impression that I chose you as a companion for your conversation. Oh, doom. She bit her lip. What if I talk weapons? I'm assuming you are familiar with legal, military, or Spectre-grade arms, which would be of great suspicion to those who use illegal versions. Not wise. What can I talk about? I will aid you in rehearsal. Benis Karat does not speak often. His character is already determined. Unfortunately, you will have to make do with his company. Are you telling me I'm going to have to learn the questionable art of criminal small talk? The useful art of all small talk, Lassam. When I am your arm candy, we will not be discussing the council or the mission. The odds are that we will be overheard under every circumstance. Contrive to be witty, yet not informative. Benis Karat will draw attention at a gathering at Hawks. You, as Shepard, will draw the attention anywhere we are seen together. I will be an unknown drill, occasionally with an unknown son. You will make us famous. Benis will make Allison Gunn famous. Am I going to have to talk about things I don't care about? Yes. You are a cruel man. I have established that. How high are the heels? From what height do you wish for me to look down upon you? Do not begin conversations. Speak only if directly addressed, and answer briefly and with disinterest. Do not be drawn into conversations with others, and take my lead. It is most likely that conversation will be directed to me, and the less attention you draw, the better. If you feel lost, smile at me, Lassam. Smile at me as though you are planning on killing me, and you have just discovered how. What? You have a particularly evocative, deadly smile. I do? You can ask Vicarian the effect your smile has upon him. He can explain where I should not. She smiled, but it wasn't deadly. It was nice that she had some credibility as a criminal. If you are not up to it, we can dispense with the gun identity, and I will present you as a mute pet. Perhaps with a control chip. Perhaps with her translator removed. He looked at her as though he were really considering it and enjoying the potential, so she quickly said, Allison Gunn it is, then. Excellent. After dinner, which Thane had collected and delivered for her, he convinced her to forego her habit of availability in the mess hall for today, and she agreed. He would grant her privacy for the few hours in the evening when she showered, spoke to Garrus, and got ready to sleep. He would arrive near to her sleep schedule and stay in her cabin. She was physically shaky, emotionally and intellectually exhausted, and still had the headache she'd been trying to hide since the medication Thane had given her had worn off. She hadn't asked for a new dose. She couldn't really get on board with having all of her pain erased as though it never happened. It happened. Thane had blessedly distracted her, and she didn't spend the whole day pining, obsessing about Garrus. At least not openly. She'd like to say he was a new distraction, but she'd been pacing her cabin thinking about Garrus for large chunks of her day for a long time. Now she spent her time worrying about him and wanting to be with him rather than worrying about her mission and trying to avoid him. Thane had spent most of the day in her cabin with her, catching her up on ship life, crew viewpoints, and easing her into the idea that she should be more engaged with her crew. If she was unable or unwilling to do that, he would act as intermediary. She heard Garrus's echoed, dry, and somewhat hurt response when she'd said she didn't know how to talk to him.
Saying hello works.
Thane was attempting to instruct her in remedial get along with other people, and the fact that a solitary assassin was much better at it than she was. This is dire. She was going to have to learn to walk in heels and talk while walking. She was going to have to learn to say hello, and say it more than once. She was going to have to smile. She still needed to talk to Russ. She should check in with her crew. Kasumi had mentioned the Grey Box mission when she'd been recruited, and Kara had forgotten about it. She thought about the outing at Hawks as halfway between terror and humor. She found it difficult to be intimidated by criminals with canapes. The way Thane described them, they mostly sounded like puffed-up lizards in mating season trying to impress each other. She imagined little lizards posturing and hissing at each other with colorful frills, tiny holsters, and shiny toy guns. And that's just kind of cute. She wasn't afraid if Thane was going to be there. She believed him when he said that he would be the king of the room. Of course he would be. If he said it would be easy, she believed him. And she believed him when he said her main problem would be trying not to turn her ankle. That would be a problem. Please don't make him have to pick her up. He was dying to pick her up and carry her out. Please. Garrus had carried her out of Novaria because the back of her knee had been bored out by a venomous arachnid stinger. And she'd still rather face that again instead of heels and Benis Karat's amused boredom and her inability to behave like a grown-up woman. She took a deep breath and chose to behave like a grown-up woman. First, with Liara. She opened a channel and got a callback response quickly, though she realized Liara had been sleeping. I'm sorry, Liara. I don't know the time difference on Hagalaz. It's okay. If you think anybody else does, you'd be wrong. Want me to check back in later? No, now is good. What's happening? Well, things have gotten weird. Uh-oh. I wanted to give you a personal heads up that you might be seeing things about me and Thane being a couple. We're not. It's cover because Garrus and I officially are. We just spent a week together. Liara blinked. It sounded like Kara Fanning just had sex and is going to lie about it. Huh. Well, if it sounds like that, it's because it's that. But Garrus and I are bonded. Thane is a decoy. He insisted. I don't think I have words. You'd stammer through them anyway. Yeah, and you probably wouldn't believe me, and you might not be able to sleep. Are you happy? About Garrus? Yes! Deliriously happy. Separation is much harder than it was. Addictive harder. Reverie hit me like... something colorful. A volley of Varen. A crush of Krogan. I need medication to manage it. It was Thane that convinced me, well, us, that we were wasting time and taking foolish risks with consequences of bond. Smart man. Yeah, he is. And convincing. I just didn't want you to get reports and wonder. We're coming to Ilium, and Thane and I are going on a mission in an undercover way. Now this I have to see. I'll be at the apartment. Thane will be there too. What is going on, Kara? Oh, sex, intrigue, and violence? Oh, well, good for you? Hopefully. Please get some sleep. I'll see you soon. We've already changed course. About a day. Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to... Can I meet Thane? Kara pondered the potential disaster of Thane meeting anybody. Liara, think very carefully here. This is a bit like inviting a vampire into your house. You can't take it back. Hopefully he's sufficiently occupied putting my life into order, according to his standards. I'm not saying he would bite. I'm saying if he decided to bite, there isn't much he can do about it. You can't just say something like that and expect me to pass up on the opportunity. All right. Here's me thinking carefully, because you can't with the information you have. I would need to introduce you as my friend and the Shadow Broker. I do my best to not lie to him. He has instincts, and he has venom, and he will just ask me, and I will tell him, or he'll find out on his own. I'm certain he's researched you because you are part of my life, and he wants to understand my life. I wouldn't suggest attracting his attention. He found out everything about me, Liara. Things I didn't know about me. He found out who my parents had been on Earth, that they had changed their names. I presented a series of mysteries to him, and he solved them. And he's still... Well, I'm still sufficiently mysterious. He bugged my quarters. He bought me an apartment on the Citadel. He intimidated Russ. He talked Garrus into not killing him after proposing a charade where he publicly touches me. He found out everything. And now he has us all sufficiently under his envenomed thumb. It's for my protection, and I believe he is doing it for the mission and because he loves me. But think very carefully about this. I'm also fairly certain that if anybody actively opposed me, he'd kill them. He's determined boundaries and terms, and he's threatened Russ and Garrus with death if they violate them. I know you're on my side, that you're not a threat to me. But if he perceives you as one, by his terms, you might be dead or hacked into an impossible corner like the rest of us. I could ask him to leave, but I won't. I need him. I need this man on my side. Very badly. I'm on your side, Kara. I'm not a threat. say that part about intimidating Russ again? I know you're on my side. Russ is a long story, but basically, Thane didn't think he was supportive enough. I'll explain. I'm trying to minimize your potential exposure. This isn't about exposure. It's about you. I wouldn't suggest attracting his attention. Do you like him? I love him. Garrus knows that. It's impossible that he and I could ever be together for lots of reasons. We all know that. It's impossible for me. It's not impossible for him. But look at where I am. Thane helped with the collector mission. He helped me get my bond consummated. He's encouraging me to be a grown-up, and he's trying to integrate my command with my life. Thane could have instead gotten me, Russ, or Garrus killed at any point, ruined my mission, and venom-doped me. He's done a lot of good with the information he gathered. Granted, he gathered it in pretty awful ways, but he also admitted to gathering it in pretty awful ways. Doing these things and admitting to doing these things should have gotten him killed several times and didn't. So, yeah, he's a terrifying person. But you love him, and he does impossible things, just like you. Kara closed her eyes tightly at the comparison. Yes, I do. We do. He does. He's saved my life. He's improved my life. He's saved my mission. He glows. If you trust him, I will. Kara, I worry. Me too. I'll see you soon, though, and you can meet him if that's what you want. I really have no idea what he's going to be like when you meet him, and he'll give you any impression he wants to give. Probably of intelligent, kind politeness. Oh, okay. Well, Kara, I worry. Oh, me too. But he got me a kitten. Look, her name's Carousel. Kara showed pictures and made smoochy faces. She's beautiful. Kara, I still worry. And I will see you soon and ask about your Torian, your Drell, and your kitten. Liara signed off. We all worry. She took another deep breath and felt a soft tremble and a shiver. Garrus. From just thinking his name, her spine wanted to know where he was, so it could stand up on its own and walk to him. She opened a video channel, and it seemed she woke him. He'd told her not to bother with learning his schedule, to call him on hers. She felt bad about that, but she had to say, I miss you. He looked haggard, pained, but he smiled and his eyes warmed. I see you didn't put a shirt on.
Well, obviously that was for bait.
It worked.
Kara, are you okay?
No, and neither are you. But we're tough and strong, and we'll survive.
Thane helped. I owe him. Again.
Yes, he did, and I owe him too. He's a friend. You're my bondmate. Between us, what matters is that we did it together.
He said heart attack was a possibility. I didn't know. I'm so sorry.
I know you didn't know. Neither did I. There's nothing to forgive.
I can't believe that.
Garrus, listen. Please. I know you're worried about me. You don't need to be. Not about this. It won't keep me from you. I did a little reading. Verse infest things. You're infested, Garrus. I'm not going away. You'd have to try really hard to get rid of me.
That's awful and wonderful, and thank you, and you?
She grinned at him. Made you laugh?
Made me love.
Me too. When she cut off the connection to her lifeline, her mate, and her resurgent reason for living, the pain and the distance overwhelmed all her otherwise successful distractions. Thane wasn't here, and she wasn't being watched, and she curled up on her side and cried. She was tired, but not physically, left to mental and emotional exhaustion, and just enough energy to have to restrain herself from taking action to go to Garrus. Reverie worked against her again. Lately, she'd been put under, often, and had gotten more blissful rest in the past week than she'd had cumulatively since leaving Mindoir. And she'd been put through a powerful medical near coma on top of that. She'd probably have to take medication to be able to sleep at all, and she didn't want to do that. She needed to learn how to live like this. She didn't want to admit to pain or loss, didn't want to be the sort of person that could not survive one of the greatest gifts and blessings she'd ever experienced. She tried to manage her sobs, but they got stronger, and they seemed never-ending. Thane entered the cabin when she was mid-sob, which she stifled, and then scrubbed the blanket over her face. She wasn't going to complain. She wasn't going to drive a wedge anywhere tender. Thane loved her, and he was being put in the position of comforting her when she wanted someone else. She couldn't. She shouldn't. And it didn't matter, because he'd heard. He'd seen. He passed a thumb along her cheek. His eyes, huge and dark, and seemingly understanding of the whole mess, which was impossible. She didn't protest when he lifted her again into his lap as he had before, and she felt his presence in a comforting but inevitable sense, the way a fence might rise, razor wire and sharp swords. This was Thane. Don't struggle. Instinctively, she chose passivity, because when she said she had difficulty with conversation, he casually recommended feigned slavery as a solution. With Thane, she did it the easy way or the hard way. Or was it just his first option, no matter how hard that was, and then a harder option? She did it. That was the lesson. She felt like squirming away, but didn't. She might drive him to find words, use venom, find a way to make her agree even without venom. He was convincing, and she wasn't. Not now. Not about this. If she didn't accept the easy comfort in his arms, he could underline all that was gauche and immature in her and offer his alternative. Enough venom, enough whispered words. She felt it. She knew it. And she, whatever he was going to do, despite all evidence to the contrary, she trusted him. And that somehow made it worse and better and Incomprehensible. He arranged her with his arms around her, blankets around them both, and his mouth brushing her hair. When you are in love, the song, your mind will seek your beloved. Years later, I can wake from a dream where I know Irikah is dead, where I saw her dead, where I felt her dead. And my impulse is to reach to her beside me for comfort, to tell her of my dream. It never fades with time or repetition. I never learn. And I never told her of my dreams while she lived. I reach, and my hand finds nothing but cold space until I touch something solid that is not her. And I remember it is never her, and never will be her. A drill never forgets, but there is a horror or a bliss to sleep, where I find myself where I most wish to be, or fear most to be. And I wake to the realization of the loss of her fresh in my mind and on the tips of my fingers. She tightened her arms around his back and chest, tilted her head down to his shoulder, and cried. She knew that feeling. She knew what it was like to wake up and think she smelled bread or saw the right color of light of the son of Mindor on her blanket. And then she had the slow horror of finding herself in barracks, or even this cabin, knowing she couldn't scream, shouldn't scream. No, it doesn't stop. It never stopped. He would never find Irikah at his side. She would never find her parents. Now there would be too many days where she wouldn't find Garrus. Maybe she could earn finding Garrus later if she was careful, if she was smart, if she managed to save everyone. Everything she'd fended off rushed in, all the distraction melted, and she had a moment of desperate panic. It was too much. It was too strong. Once she thought about Garrus, she wanted to run to the shuttle to get to him. When she tried to sleep and her control slipped away, she couldn't. She didn't want to wake up to that. And this was the feeling Garrus had had after she died, what she'd put him through every day for months after she'd gotten back. He'd been alone with that for years. She had a long way to go to even touch the amount of suffering Garrus had endured for her. He'd done the best he could, did the best he could, smiled and laughed, and it was going to kill her. It felt like it was going to kill her in her sleep when all the distractions and purpose and things she could think slipped away and left her only with what she felt. Thane's fingertips and palm were along her neck, and she began to feel the venom soak in through her. Unresisting and horrifyingly welcome, because this was all too much. She couldn't sleep. She needed to sleep, and what she felt would not change unless he made it happen with venom and whispers and the understanding in his voice. Do you have nightmares, Lassam? She did. Terrible things. Smoke and fire, sunlight and bread, and now cold blue Taurian eyes that were dead or dying or distant. She hadn't had them with reverie, but now she had even more fuel for her mind to flex needy claws and dig them in until she tasted blood, and when she woke up, She nodded. She felt the venom stroke in her throat. Not while I am here. I will watch over you, Vesam. She didn't have reverie. She didn't have a coma. She didn't want medication. Thane slowly serenaded her with venom, and his hum that was like lapping waves on a peaceful shore. Words and names attempted to rush through her mind, with tears tracking down her face, with her idly wondering if she'd ruin the leather of his jacket. His jacket was worth more than... He was worth more than... Priceless wasn't enough. Thanks weren't enough. There weren't any words. She didn't have the words to express the relief of being carried by him when her steps were excruciating. She needed him, and he knew it, and she didn't have to say it. He was her arm that moved without being asked. There was no debt. There was no threshold. She focused on breathing, the venom warming and relaxing her, but not so much that she lost herself. And that was a luxury. She didn't have a control chip. Her translator had not been taken. She was Kara and Lal and Shepard and Commander and Limayeth and the Psalm and Verse, and they were all mute and enduring. He was an experienced and qualified guide who could show her how to endure the unendurable, and she believed him when he said she would have no nightmares, allowed him to whisper her to sleep. She was unquestioning and unanswering, with her tears and ache, and knowing that when she woke up, she'd be in the wrong place, with the wrong man, and he'd be in the wrong place with the wrong woman. And it was better and worse than being alone.